us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide: Center City Mall, Chaguanas, and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Remember waking up early just to catch your favorite cartoons? WESN brings back those magical mornings with Retro Saturdays.
Thus, the Powerpuff Girls were born!
Where the young at heart relive the fun. Join us every Saturday from 8 a.m. to 12 noon, only on WESN, the content capital.
WESN.
Well, welcome to a late edition of AM Prime, but this is Talking Point. This is Talking Point. Sean Michael Small here. This is Talking Point at WSN, the Content Capital. Now, I guess you know what? This is very fitting. This is very fitting because in these days, I would argue we need a little bit of brevity, of humor, of lightness, in order to distract us from whatever it is they think they're doing between, you know, the Red House and Whitehall and other corridors of power that leaves us mere peasants, the peasantry, the common folk, the simple people, the people at the lowest end of the power rankings, of which you don't just have to be poor to be there, folks. You just have to have zero political influence whatsoever. Leaves us all just, you know, questioning what's going on and where's all the winning. I don't know. So we need a little bit of humor. A little bit of humor. Now, before we get into all of that, I'm going to continue, I guess, maybe to beat a dead horse because I've spoken about this a lot. But there's still some points that I want to make. We'll get into the top story. Please don't think I'm burying the lead. I'm just leaving the conversation for its appropriate time because we're going to have it with Ashraf in a few minutes. But I'm going to speak about something that he's not here to speak about, so I can't speak about it later, so I'm going to speak about it now. And that is the continued discussion with regards to the data center. Because I think I am concerned that people are rushing onto the bandwagon of, well, we must jump on board with innovation and take the risks, otherwise we're backwards. Not that we could even necessarily state exactly what the consequence would be if we don't do this endeavor. Although I think I saw somebody, I don't know if they were speaking about TNT or if we'll be the next Kodak, or I can't remember where I read that. But I just have one example to push back against those blind faith concerns or considerations, or those blind faith arguments that are basically saying, what do you mean we need to be cautious? This is great. We should forge ahead. Well, one of the distinct technical innovations of the last 5 to 10 years has been with regards to batteries to run battery-powered vehicles. And most of the world determined that electronic vehicles were the future. They were the future. And you needed to jump on that bandwagon or risk being left behind. Except for one small automaker from a small country. You know, rather insignificant, this company. You might not heard of it, since so many people love to drive their BYDs, and of course you still have those driving their BMWs and the Mercedes, and of course you know it is popular, that's Nissan, and the Vesel is popular, that's Honda. So you might not heard of this company, or you might have forgotten that they existed. This little known company called Toyota, who said, let's not put all the eggs in the EV basket. And rather than following fashion, jumping on the bandwagon, you know, listening to the hype of electronic vehicles, oh, it's going to be the future. It's going to be the future. Don't get left behind. Because if you get left behind, then you'll go the way of Kodak. Maybe there was this that I read it about. And the thing is, Toyota said, hold up. We're not going to fall for the groupthink. We're not lemmings. If one goes off the cliff, we're not going to just automatically assume diving off the cliff is a good idea. Because the infrastructure, the economies of the world, the society of the world, they're lacking something very important. Widespread implementation of charging stations. Basic infrastructure to allow you to actually recharge your vehicle at the same level of convenience that you would refuel your vehicle. And Toyota said, let's go into hybrids. Despite the fact that we have been making EVs, maybe before many, if not all, let's go into hybrids. Right now, hybrids are the future, and they were criticized. Other car makers criticized them and mocked them. Environmentalists criticize them and mock them. I believe, you know, investment brokers and the stock market and so forth did not respond well to Toyota's seemingly hesitance to keep up with the Joneses and to fall behind. Everybody mocked them. Their CEO stepped down, although he continued to be the chairman of Toyota. They got a new CEO, and the new CEO, the expectation was he's going to right the ship and commit to electronic vehicles, full electronic vehicles, what the old CEO did not want to do. And the new CEO said, nah, I think we'll continue doing what we're doing. And that is, we're going to go with hybrids. Hybrids right now are the future, not electronic vehicles. And you might say, but what do you mean? Well, electronic vehicles might be the future in the long term. But right now, hybrids are the future because that's what the market is adopting. Think about it. First of all, I wouldn't recommend to anybody in Trinidad to buy an electronic vehicle because as far as I'm aware, charging stations are limited and to some extent potentially non-existent depending on what part of the country you live. I would recommend a hybrid. Now, why are we going to assume that, well, you know, everywhere else has charging stations or lower? No, that's not the case. In many parts of America, it's not too dissimilar to us when it comes to electronic vehicles recharging. So Toyota didn't just fall for the hype. They actually looked at the practical circumstances and asked the most basic relevant question. Is this practical? And they said no, and everybody mocked them for it. And now in 2026, Toyota is still the #1 car manufacturer. Toyota is profiting on their hybrids, and everybody else is pivoting to hybrids because the electronic vehicle market did not grow. It sold to everyone that wanted an EV, and then it stopped, it plateaued. Because that market segment was niche and was always going to be limited in the short term because most people do not view electronic vehicles, fully electronic vehicles, as practical. Because at the end of the day, they don't want to have to do ridiculous navigation and calculations in order to ensure that the electric vehicle has enough charge to get them where they need to go. Some people, it's not a big deal because of their lifestyle, the location of where they live, where they work, etc., etc. But you can't say that about everybody. So Toyota didn't just fall for the hype. They looked at practical reality and made the best, or at least the better, strategic decision. It wasn't just about, oh, well, the risk is there to take, so take it. Yeah, I believe Volkswagen did it. A whole host of American and European car manufacturers did it. China isn't only electronic. They went into hybrids as well. BYD, I believe, they're pushing hybrids now. So everyone thought, oh, Toyota, the former CEO, had a love affair with gas engines and sports cars. No. He was a practical man that was not going to cave into pressure of groupthink and just listen to the consensus and blindly follow that. Because the stock market, just remember, the stock market is not populated by car manufacturers. We've seen the stock market respond stupidly to AI. When they rewarded companies that laid off workers, assuming cost reductions because you have less employees. So the company is technically more profitable. So the stock price is gonna raise because more people are gonna wanna buy into this stock before it gets too high. Except the anticipated cost reductions never really materialize because productivity dropped, because AI is not a one-for-one replacement, and the stock market and the people who work there never really understood that. The corporations, they just follow the incentive, or our stock price goes up if we do this, let's do this. Some of these CEOs never really understood that. And now they have to rehire all the people that they laid off in order to reclaim the institutional knowledge and skills necessary to get the AI working. So instead of reducing their costs, one could argue it potentially in some cases increased their cost from where they started. The stock market is not some magical place that understands everything perfectly. It gets it wrong. So, same thing happened with Toyota. They didn't just go all in to what the stock market said, what the incentives were on the financial markets. No, they said, we are the car manufacturer. We will assess the situation from that perspective. So now, take that example and look at not falling for the hype and taking practical stock of what the reality is, of what the practical circumstances are, what the practical limitations are, versus trying to keep up with the Joneses. We have to fall into the hype now, before it's too late. Sometimes that works out. Kodak did fail because they didn't want to leave film. Although true artists to some degree still use film, the commercialization of photography of the mass market went digital. Same thing for Blockbuster. They didn't want to buy Netflix. It went to online streaming instead of VHS rental because it made sense. The market adopted those things. It made practical sense to them. Now, there are practical concerns for this AI data center. And we've already seen practical limitations and even shortcomings of the AI product itself. That alone suggests a chance that a data center, even if it has none of the environmental concerns, none of the electricity generation concerns, none of the water requirement concerns, none of the noise pollution concerns, none of the material pollution or physical pollution concerns, because when parts go bad and need to be thrown out, that's a lot of electronics now. Let's take all of those concerns out. The project could still fail. The project could still fail, and the opportunity cost can still cost us in terms of our development. So, yes, you can't accomplish something without taking risks. I acknowledge that. But you see, one should not be running a country by going to the dice table and just rolling the dice. It should be a little bit more calculated than that. Remember, we should be taking calculated risks, not going to Vegas and hoping that the house doesn't win, when invariably the house always wins, if you want to take bets out on that level. No, we have to be more responsible. Sitting governments have to be more responsible. And that doesn't mean that we scrap the AI data center project. It means just stop talking about things as if you know what you're talking about, when the reality is the positive justifications you're trying to pass off as actual reasoning is just hollow buzzwords that reveals to me, like governments before, when it comes to certain technological topics, you have no clue. And on some level, the proof is in the fact that your very own line minister of AI is not speaking in the same manner that the other members of the UNC are speaking, including the Prime Minister. I wonder why. I wonder why he's able to give a more responsible response to the concerns. I wonder why they can't even be on the same page for something like this. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll welcome Ashraf and we'll get into the big story of the day. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Stay tuned.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
There are limitations in all healthcare sectors,
Correct.
not just this country,
Yes.
where the numbers will surpass the amount of doctors and nurses to provide that quality care. We're talking about holding a patient's hand, giving them the support, the emotional support that they need, advice. That gap,
Yes.
you are providing that pivotal gap, so that really makes you stand out from all other NGOs as far as my experience goes.
Yes, I actually go into the homes also of the patients.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Are you driven, ambitious, and ready to earn? WESN, the content capital, is expanding, and we're looking for dynamic media sales executives to join our team. Sell powerful advertising solutions across television, digital, and social media platforms, and help brands tell their story. If you have strong communication skills, a passion for sales, and the drive to succeed, join WESN today. Send your CV to marketing@wsncc.com or WhatsApp 68-61662 and start building your future.
There are limitations in all the healthcare sectors,
Correct.
not just this country,
Yes.
where the numbers will surpass the amount of doctors and nurses to provide that quality care. We're talking about holding a patient's hand, giving them the support, emotional support that they need, advice. That gap, you are providing that pivotal gap, so that really makes you stand out from all other NGOs as far as my experience goes.
Yes, I actually go into the homes also of the patients.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
In this day of stay-at-home and work from home, home has never meant more than it does today. Whether you're looking to buy, rent, or build your new home, now is the time to get going. Gittins & Gittins Real Estate Agents are here to take you to that place of your dreams. Let us take you home. We'd help you find that rental to rest along the way, or journey with you to find your home destination. Investors and commercial enterprises too, call us and we'll walk the distance to place your business in just the right location. Owners, leave the headaches to us. We'll find your tenants or buyers while you stay at home. We'll even manage your property at your bidding. Anything real estate, come home to Gittins & Gittins Real Estate. Call us at 760-3280 or 747-1220, or visit us at 16 Fifth Street in Woodbrook.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing@wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
remember waking up early just to catch your favorite cartoons? WESN brings back those magical mornings with Retro Saturdays.
Thus, the Powerpuff Girls were born!
Where the young at heart relive the fun. Join us every Saturday from 8 a.m. to 12 noon, only on WESN, the content capital.
Yes, folks, this is Talking Point. As I said at the top of the show, don't be worried. Don't look behind. Don't look behind the curtain, see the man behind the curtain. You know, I am the Great Oz. And this is Ashraf Ali joining me on Friday. Yes, I know he wasn't here last week. He wasn't here last week. He was busy with other things. So he neglected us.
That's all right.
In our time of great need.
Sometimes it is good to allow persons to flourish on themselves and to depend on others.
Yeah. So while you weren't here,
yes,
some small things happened. You know, minor issues in the national conversation. Certain people were arrested, and it has played out to just yesterday. Certain people were supposed to be released, and then they weren't released, and it brings up a lot of questions on this situation. So let me just set up a summary of where I am at, so we'll be on the same page. You know how I feel about the situation: the good, the bad, and the ugly. First, the good.
Right. How you pause on the good? Like you don't have much good on it.
I can't even play devil's advocate, to be honest, on the good, right? So now the bad. The bad is, I really hope this is not what it appears to be, because the timing of everything makes it appear to be very political, right? And I know that there's technically coincidences can happen, but I think we've reached a point now where the population is so jaded. They don't hear nothing about no coincidence anymore, right?
Yeah, that coincidence could not draw.
Which is sad, because history probably, I can't remember any off the top of my head, but is, you know, inundated with examples where coincidences has caused tragedies. I mean, World War I, it literally was a coincidence that the person who eventually assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand was able to get him. Just happened to, oh look, my target. I kill this guy, and I start one of the biggest wars the world has ever known, only to be dwarfed by the subsequent sequel, which is arguably directly tied to the First World War. So that one assassination gave us, you could argue, 2 whole world wars. That is literally a moment in history where, well, because they were evading a threat and came down one particular street right in front of somebody that wanted to do the deed, that's how history unfolded. So that's the bad. The ugly, this has ramifications for PDOs and the state of emergency, because at least they started the process to challenge both. And I think that's going to be very interesting now with regards to how the legal system responds to that, because potentially, should a court, a judge's decision be allowed to determine the state's capacity to utilize a state of emergency and preventative detention orders, or should it not? That's a heavy question that I am not prepared to answer right now, because I could see good and bad in both directions.
And that is where I think we are at this point in time. No matter what the decision that our learned judges are going to make later this afternoon, based on everything, the outcome wouldn't benefit, wouldn't satisfy many of the persons. So let's hypothetically say no release. What does that say what does that speak to? Release, what does that speak to again? Because in both circumstances, they will have some issues. And look at it from this perspective. That decision that is going to be made later today, based on everything that what is right there on the media, that I think the matter is for 3 o'clock this afternoon, right? It's going to impact not this matter alone, but matters that will be coming up, and persons who are actually on PDOs who are waiting or are trying to get their day before the court to answer certain things. The only difference I see in this circumstance is that the accused parties are financially able to get more traction in the courts because they're pushing to get certain things. Now, it's not that they have, it's not that they are getting preferential treatment. I'm not saying preferential treatment. I'm just simply saying the reality is, in order for you to get in our judicial system at this point in time some sort of traction to get things moving faster, you have to have the wherewithal in terms of status and financial backings to get certain type of legal representation at a higher level than the average person. So it speaks whether our judicial system is actually fair or not. But we cannot say our judicial system is not fair, because this is not Trinidad and Tobago alone. Throughout the world it happens. So all judicial systems operate within the same principle, or operate under the same principle, right? So I wouldn't say that we are the only person in the only country that operates this way. We realize that if you have the wherewithal, you have the financial backing, you can get the best defense possible, and more can be done, because
essentially that, on some level, Israel can ask the question, was it laws for the rich and separate laws for the poor? Because, of course, now this is the first time we've seen a PDO translate into, even though it hasn't actually been implemented, house arrest. So now it begs the question, why can't it happen for other detained? The irony, of course, is in some cases where they're assumed to be gang leaders.
But let's look at this.
They have the financial means.
Let's look at this logically and from an unbiased perspective. From the onset of this PDO, and when the information came forth that the persons were alleged that they have information that suggests, or the intelligence suggests, or whatever the information or whatever they use, is that you're talking about the offense of conspiracy to commit murder against 2 high office officials. We're talking the Prime Minister of a country, that is the state, and the Attorney General, that is the state. That alone, in my opinion, could stand on its own. You don't need a PDO for that. That's a serious offense. The laws of Trinidad and Tobago state covers that.
But the implication is they don't have enough to say it's evidence.
I don't know what I have to say whether it's evidence or not. But if it is taken so long, in my opinion, to fight the battle of a PDO, why is the evidence of conspiracy to commit murder is not taken frontline? Because that is the most serious. The PDO is not the serious offense. The PDO is just an administrative challenge.
I think part of it is the fact that in the appeal court ruling, basically the 3 judges for the initial appeals court ruling kind of questioned the level of factual information to base the PDO off of. And I've never seen this before, but basically they said that what was presented was not sufficient. Now, I didn't necessarily know that there was any kind of burden of proof for a preventative detention order, but they used language to that effect. No, at least it was reported to say so.
So this is where this matter itself, I shouldn't say the case, this matter itself is setting some precedents. Because the person who signs off on a PDO from administrative perspective is the Minister of National Security / Homeland Security, as we know, as you know, the office holder.
What's interesting is, was all the relevant laws ever, I hope they were, I assume they were, but when they changed the ministries, because I still sometimes see in the official documentation the old minister's name, so legally, was that ever changed to say Homeland Security Minister as opposed to National Security Minister? And I don't know if that's sufficient grounds to challenge the situation.
Nevertheless, the person who holds the position still signs the final document. Now, the difference is that he or she is not there to adjudicate a PDO. It's to determine whether or not, it's to just simply say what was presented is reasonable enough to say, listen, based on the advice, because that is directed, because you have to give, the police the police service and the office of the police service under the office of the commissioner would have presented a case, right? Factual, circumstantial, or otherwise, that this, we need a PDO to continue doing X, Y, and Z. That is circumstances between how a PDO will operate. Right. Good. The minister signs off, say, yes, based on what you're saying, we'll give you the opportunity to do your investigation. Right? This matter has now gone before judges who is viewing the circumstantial, viewing the evidence or what was presented, and is now making a determination that the minister could not have made. So now the court is determining it. This is where we are actually on unprecedented ground right now, because according to several of judges and lawyers, this is going to set the foundation. This matter is going to set the foundation. You know?
I mean,
it is going to cause some problems. After today, our floodgates are going to be open.
I said it. I basically said this is going to lead to challenges, right? But I think the issue with this case, however, is before, when it was assumed gangster XYZ or ABC, we took it for granted. And for whatever reason, because one would think they would have the financial means to take it up further, right? They did not. So we don't necessarily know what would have happened if we would have gotten the same results, right? For those in previous detention orders with the financial means, would they have gotten the same result, generally speaking? Assuming that the intelligence or evidence that the state had on them was of a similar level to what it had on the Hadids. And I say that just to say, so that if we had a direct comparison where, you know, it was mainly about socioeconomics and nothing else, then I could give what Israel Khan had to say more meaningful weight. And I don't necessarily think that he literally, totally 100% means in his statement. I think he's just asking the question because he's seeing an inconsistency. And that's something like this. Like you said, this is going to set a precedent. So the last thing now is you want a practical inconsistency, because then now the court might say, all right, we need to course correct. Since this is your ruling on the Hadid's matter, now we have to, you know, deconflict and get everything else in line with that. And that's why it could have all of those far-reaching consequences.
And that is why I continue to say, using a PDO in a manner in which it has been used previously by a previous administration and our current administration. So this is not one administration.
So, because I literally can't remember, the previous administration as in the PNM or the partnership, they use a PDO for what?
They had detention orders for a number of persons also.
This is during the SOE
of the last administration.
2025, early 2025.
So they also used it. This administration is also using it. And I'm saying, Not because one administration uses it and follows the trend, this administration follows the trend. But this administration is also using the same principles, but you will realize, using the same principles across the board, the consequences is not what we're going to be facing now.
But here's the thing. I think at the end of the day, like I said, the population kind of took it for granted as gangsters. So we're not going to really dig no horrors, right? And none of them challenged that. I think they were all kind of just waiting.
Not the gangsters alone. It started, the question of PDOs came not with the gangsters alone. Is when persons did, when we had persons who were voicing their opinion, protesters on social media.
Did that happen? I don't think that happened in the PNM. I could be wrong.
No, I'm not too sure. I can't remember.
Now, you could lump the Christopher Hughes sedition charge.
Yes, it's similar.
It's similar, but it's not about a PDO issue. But it's similar in the sense of state utilizing the law against, I guess in his case, I would argue it's a scapegoat situation.
So PDOs was acceptable in the context of criminal behavior, right? And when I say criminal behavior, I'm talking about the ones that persons were comfortable with, gangs committing gang violence and everything else. So if a gang person, if somebody who is alleged to be a gang member is on a PDO, it's acceptable. Now we started the baby steps, or I should say it wasn't a baby step anymore, it was some leaps into social media and possible persons who voice an opinion via protest. PDOs was issued to them. Now we go furthermore, where it's prominent individuals, notwithstanding, and I'm simply saying prominent or otherwise, because it's prominent individuals, and I believe we're missing what is the basis of that PDO for. And I'm coming back again. It was for conspiracy for murder. Gang members were issued PDOs because they were, or there was intelligence to say that they wanted to cause harm to other persons. They were willing to shoot and kill. Isn't that the same? Are we not on the same level? Are we coming up on the same level? But what I'm showing you is that why this attention is being placed on the individuals and not the nature of the allegations, how serious the allegations are.
No, but I think the nature of the allegations is part of the jumping the shark moment for the population.
Exactly.
Right? In the sense of, and this is where having a Minister of Homeland Security who is not politically experienced or savvy enough, let's just say it what it is, might be coming back to bite the government in its rear end. Because did he give enough consideration to the fact of, if we don't have enough evidence to charge, and there is already a legal dispute with this person, regardless of whether this should matter or not for criminal proceedings, it will still look to the court of public opinion as though there is a conflict of interest.
No. Let's though make assumptions that the minister didn't get some or sought some legal advice. Let me just don't make that assumption.
No, listen, I understand he might have gotten legal advice, but at the end of the day, a not so insignificant amount of the population believes this is political. So I'm not speaking about what happened. I'm speaking about how it's being interpreted.
So you and I on the same page.
Right.
So we're actually on the same page, right? Probably a different line. Two lines
different coming from different directions.
But we're on the same page. So it speaks to this. It speaks to the conversation that has been on the front burner. The accused, the offense that they are alleged, the alleged offenses, and the bigger picture is the nature of the PDOs and how it is being used.
Because the thing is, when that lady sent a social media post to Venezuela to bomb the Prime Minister's residence, right? I understood the need to respond to that.
Sure.
Right? And I believe she was released eventually.
So then my question is, in that context, she was released. Was she charged?
I don't think so.
So here's the misinterpretation. I think this is a bitter misinterpretation of a lot of persons when it comes to PDO. PDO does not mean charge.
Yes. No, we.
No, a lot of persons don't believe that, don't understand that. A preventive detention order does not mean that a person should be charged.
Folks, the reason why that matters is when charges fail to accrue, it's a lot easier, and we've seen this from 2011, for the state to be sued.
So that is why you have to be very...
And the state has lost these lawsuits.
So the PDO might give you, in a state of emergency, a little more leeway without the state of emergency, because after a state of without a state of emergency, you only have a certain amount of time to keep somebody in custody, and then you'll have to show cause why to continue, because you have to go, before a judge and give just cause. And if you can't give just cause, you'll have to release and continue investigation.
Well,
no.
Technically speaking, for the state of emergency, what the state argued was, well, there's the tribunal, and it's supposed to go to the trial. But the Court of Appeal in this case made the ruling that given the fact that the minister is under no compulsion,
yes.
and notice, I think this does matter, the fact that it's the minister, not the commissioner,
yes.
is under no compulsion to listen to the recommendations of the tribunal, it is not sufficient, which already chips away at the whole veneer of I guess you could say, stability of the state of emergency, of proprietary, of the fact that, you know, this is reasonable. It chips away at the reasonableness, because part of it is, oh, well, we have a tribunal, so if you have an issue, go to the tribunal. But of course, the bill is now saying, well, given how it's set up, we're saying it's not sufficient. So you can't say, well, you don't need to take it to the courts because you have an alternative. That's not an alternative. And that is already starting to make me uncomfortable, because it's making the thing seem more and more like a house of cards. And I always kind of thought this, what's going to incentivize someone to kick this whole thing down? I just didn't expect it potentially to be something that somebody on the side of the nation, on the side of the state, will proactively opt into.
No. When you look at how the PDOs continue to be applied, there's not consistency in it. There's a lack of transparency in how the PDO is utilized. The PDO gives you an opportunity to continue further investigation. And I'm simply saying this. A PDO is a preventative order. So the intention is to prevent you from carrying out or attempting to carry out what you intended to do, or prevent you from further trying to carry out all of that. That is to prevent you. In order to prevent you, I will detain you. So you would not be at risk. You can't carry out what you intended, because you was going to cause some problems. In layman terms, you're going to get trouble, so we lock you up. If you say I'm going to get trouble and I have information that I'm going to do something, then the final outcome after a PDO, or at the end of the PDO period, so that should end up at the end, you're supposed to at least charge. So if you don't charge me for something, then you leave the door open for me to say unlawful arrest, or detain me, or they'll justify why you have to say why you keep me for so long.
Now, I don't have an issue if the intelligence is good enough that you can make the case, well, look, we had to utilize the PDO, we'll bite the bullet down the line in order to prevent something major. The problem is, I doubt they could say that for all of these PDOs. And
that is why when you're using, or I should say abusing, a administrative process within a system.
Is it fair to say this should be an exception?
It is.
And not a norm?
No. If this is just me, this is my view from I'm watching from it. If the first instance that the individuals who claim the first set of POs that was given to gang members who wanted to disrupt and cause problems for national security and threaten the lives of ministers and public officials, that warranted a PDO. It warranted a PDO.
Right.
Right? So there was no issue about it because that was a special circumstance. You have a special power, you have a special authority to prevent such a thing from happening. Good? That is what it was intended for. A PDO was intended directly for what this matter in the public domain with the conspiracy to murder for. It is for that deter such a activity. I am saying in between those type of activities and where it was used, how it was used in other areas, it's not adding up on both sides.
Well, because, look, Mr. Samaru, I believe, Christopher Samaru, he's being held currently on a PDO. And the thing is, again, I understand that the police needed to respond. They couldn't just leave it alone, right? As much as you have to, you need to empathize with the man. You couldn't leave it alone because he kind of said something that you shouldn't encourage.
Charge him. So fine, you give him a PDO, charge him, go before the court, let him get his day before the court, let him plead before the court, let the court make a decision, done talk. He himself, with his lawyer, was willing to present a case in mitigation to say, okay, why I made certain statements in a certain manner.
So
allow the individual to go before the court.
So that's part of it. A PDO is not just potentially a situation where, oh, well, you didn't have enough on me and you're holding me without just cause. It can also be interpreted, whether intended or not. You are denying me my day in court by not proceeding with the natural course of justice.
Allow the person to go before the court. Let him get his day in court. Let the court adjudicate on it.
I have spoken this week ad nauseum about how inconsistency, it might not reveal what the falsehood is, but it usually reveals things to be suspicious about. If you are acting in good faith, if you're acting on principle, by the very nature, you're not going to be inconsistent. Or at least if you are, you could have a readily available explanation.
And the two examples I gave for the first PDO were criminal elements and this current example. Conspiracy, by all definition, there is a lot of ingredients to add to conspiracy.
But let's look at the initial state of emergency. And then there was a whole incident with Minister Stage.
Yes.
In his own constituency, where there was a suspicious vehicle that caused his security to respond a certain way.
And possible threats to his life.
Now, here's the thing. We might have had PDOs. This is the thing. I don't think it's been made clear that people detained were detained for the sake of preventing the threats against the government. We just know that gangsters were detained.
Yeah.
And we also don't know that all of the alleged suspects in the threats against the government were detained. So I am left to question, has this measure been truly used equally? Because the first extension of the SOE dropped the whole threats against the government, and it was just about violence. So therefore, the implication is, we're going to wait. We no longer concern about threats against the government, but we're going to keep all these people in custody who we can't charge, because when they had to drop the SOE, they wanted these ZOSOs in order to continue the PDOs, but they didn't get it. There was a month in between, and I believe on some level, didn't they have to release some of those people or potentially start the process? Maybe they didn't get that far in the month that there was no legal cover.
The longer the state of emergency continues, and it has been continuing for a long period of time, is the more issues that will be surrounding the PDOs. Because short period, we allow persons to be released.
I guess that's the thing, right? It was meant as a short-term measure.
A short-term measure.
You circumvent rights. It's a short-term measure, so it will be corrected, even if it has to be corrected after the fact. It's a short-term measure, so it's not going to take long after the fact. So the lawsuits could potentially be worse if they manage to continue with rolling SOEs up until the next election.
So my thing about it is this. During this SOE, should somebody make threats against an individual, should they be placed on a PDO?
Well, here's the thing. We know that it is a common, for lack, we might have mentioned this before.
Hear what I'm saying.
But people throw out a threat to kill someone,
Sean,
very willy-nilly.
Sean, that is what I'm saying. So should someone make threats?
No, but you see, the reason why I rephrased it is, at least before, I know legally that will constitute a threat.
Mm-hmm.
But to the common citizens, we're not going to interpret that as a true threat.
So here I can just digress a little bit and expand the conversation for people to think out the box. There are a number of persons who are in domestic violence situations. Good? If they make a report to the police will advise to get a restraining order.
Yes.
We're in a state of emergency. So, but if you are a direct threat,
right,
to your isn't that PDO? Could you not utilize a PDO then?
In fact, and in this case, I assume you don't need the victim to actually, press the issue, file charges or what have you, because that's the issue with special victims. Arun tells me they would be ready to go, and then the victim would be like, no, I don't actually want you to do anything. So I just want you to warn him.
So the PDO, in its basic form, a basic foundation, is to prevent someone from committing an act.
But the problem is, you try to handle domestic disputes with a state of emergency PDO. A state of emergency was never meant.
That is my.
Okay.
That's my point I'm making. You use the current existing laws to deal with situations and the PDO for special circumstances.
So here's another thing, because part of the issue I think with this case that the public has a problem with regards to the Hadid's matter. So it went one of two ways. There's a conspiracy which was starting to mature, and by maturing I mean I don't assume the 60-something-year-old aunt is the trigger woman, which means there would be other people involved, because none of the 3 individuals detained seemed to have that sufficient capacity.
Sure.
But hold on. So one could argue it would mature to a situation that things will be put in place. Or they arrested them after only talk was made, right?
So,
and hold on. The reason why I bring it up is some people are saying, why didn't you, I don't know, you have intelligence that they're saying these things. Saying these things doesn't constitute a crime. Why didn't you potentially keep observing the situation until they actually started?
No, Sean.
No?
No, Sean. And I see about saying it. Conspiracy. This is not the act we're talking about. Conspire to commit an act.
No, I know that. But the problem is, if somebody just says something.
It is good enough. Sean, if you and I are having Sean, under the umbrella of conspiracy, you and I having a conversation. You and I having a conversation with a third party with us. Let's say 3 persons having a conversation, and the third party report that we, or all of us, were conspiring to commit an act. We don't have to carry the act.
No, I'm not saying carry out the act. I'm saying, right, to show that the conspiracy, it was not just talk. Because right now you have one person saying, oh, well, yes, they were conspiring, right? But to what extent is the context of the conversation being assumed or taken out of context?
That will only be, because at this point in time...
are you going to say it's going to be adjudicated in a court of law?
No, the only time it will be adjudicated is when a charge is laid.
Right.
At this point in time, no charges has been laid against the persons.
And that's why I'm saying...
So that is why...
People are of the opinion, why didn't you gather more evidence first so that you can charge them?
So I am saying to you, the preventive detention order, and we keep saying it, is for that purpose. It is a special circumstance. So I don't...
But the thing is, if you don't have enough evidence to charge, and you pick them up on a PDO, obviously whatever they intended to do is going to stop, and you will never get any more evidence to charge.
You don't want... And in conspiracy, you don't need the act to carry out.
I'm not saying the act.
So I am saying
let them go down the rabbit hole further, and then we could say when they made certain calls, when they contacted certain people.
You and I are speculating. And the reason why I'm saying we are speculating, we don't have the information that they have.
But notice, I didn't say my issue with it.
No, so we are never issue.
I am saying people are asking the question based on what they've been told.
Or lack of what they've been told.
No, but based on what they've been told or what has been implied by what has been told, right? So, okay, fine, the lack. That this thing might have gone off premature and in a way prevented proper concrete evidence for the conspiracy charge, not an actual shooting event.
So here the only time that we can say that or be satisfied that that happened is when a charge is laid and that matter before the court. Then they will determine at that point in time whether or not. But for now...
You see, and the thing is, again, you can't underestimate the public's opinion.
No, I'm not underestimating the public opinion.
Because here's the thing. If the speculation is true, they will potentially never be charged.
And this is why the public opinion, the court of public opinion is taking precedence over our current judiciary, because our judiciary is not dealing with the conspiracy to murder, the issue of conspiracy to murder. You know, they are dealing with a PDO.
I would disagree with that. I say that the court of public opinion takes precedence because transparency,
Sean, we're on the same,
is not practiced.
Sean, we're not on the same page. You're not hearing what I'm saying.
I know, but you see, the way how I say it does imply some differences that I think is present enough.
You and I can't speak the same way. So we're coming from a different perspective. And I'm saying to you, the court of public opinion is taking precedence because the serious matter of a conspiracy to commit murder against state officials, we're talking the Prime Minister and Attorney General, that is as serious as it can get.
Yeah.
Is not, has not been allowed to go before the courts. So because we have the court of public opinion is determining everything else. The court right now is only adjudicating on the nature of, or shall I say, the circumstance of PDO. And I am simply saying, if we wanted, in my view, this matter, based on the nature, and I keep on saying, if somebody is going to conspire to commit murder, that those persons should have been charged, whether you have circumstantial evidence or otherwise.
Right.
Send a file to the DPP, get the relevant advice before you take a PDO. Let that matter, so the DPP can say, listen, charge or no charge, release, continue investigation. But right now, what we're doing right now is not dealing with the allegations, you know. The front burner question right now, or the front burner issue is not the allegations, you know. Is the PDO and the administrative process that are wrong a PDO. We have not even addressed...
Because at the end of the day, and I think this is where we are on the same page, even though it might not sound like it, right? And I agree with you. I said it earlier. Based on what you're saying, one of the risks of a PDO is not just that it will hold people without sufficient evidence, but it will prevent the natural course of justice, right? And the thing is, that's part of what the population is interpreting. Because you're kind of, for the sake of the argument, saying conspiracy to murder if there's a conspiracy to murder matter. But the reality is, it has not been sufficiently proven whether a court of law or the court of public opinion or in any other arena, whatever your burden of proof is. We haven't even seen a sufficient enough just reasonable argument. Doesn't have to be to prove the matter, doesn't have to necessarily put it to bed, but just to give us a counterpoint to weigh on, to consider that this is not just an empty threat, but it's an actual conspiracy. And that's why I was coming from it from my perspective, where people in the public are like, well, if you can't charge them, you should have waited until you got enough evidence, let the conspiracy side mature more, don't wait until bullets actually start firing, so that you could gather enough evidence. And that, I think, is what some people are questioning. And given the fact that the government is not able or unwilling to communicate this thing in a manner that will reassure us, it's very difficult for people to give them the benefit of the doubt, because again, it looks, there's enough in the public sphere to make it look political, regardless of what proper procedure is, and if it was followed, because we've already been once bitten, twice shy, and some of it is, yes, the current government paying for the sins of the previous government, but the reality is, when you notice corruption from any government, you're not going to assume, at least those of us who are not diet supporters, that that magically just, it will never happen under the new administration. No, on some level it continues, in part because it's not necessarily even the elected officials doing it, right? Whatever the mistake that was made, or the excess that was made, or the corruption was in part involved, the bad seeds in the public service, police service, whatever, right? And the politicians take advantage of that. They know who to go to, right? We still haven't gotten answers about the Brent Thomas situation. That's not a UNC mistake. Nope. That was a PNN mistake. So why is it we can't, and that's the other thing. The one thing that has shown to be consistent is when it comes to these high-profile matters, they just fall apart. So now you use a PDO. At least Ella was arrested. If she was held under a PDO, I couldn't begin to imagine the kind of lawsuits her lawyers would be trying to get her to carry out, right? I don't know what's going on with her situation now. I don't know if it's stalled or if she's just decided to drop the matter or what have you, right? But the Brent Thomas affair, the Ayla arrest, and certain other matters, they never seem to come to any kind of fruition. So now you have this PDO, and it looks so thin to the public. I think even to some, what we do know about it might not have necessarily been revealed by the authorities. It might have been leaked.
So this is where we are at right now. Everything is concentrated on the administrative procedures or the legality around a PDO and what it means and what can be done. So at the end of today, we may get a better understanding of where this whole thing with the PDO goes. That itself is going to cause some more conversation or added conversation going forward, right? Because for me, Sean, this is my personal view. Once someone there's allegations of conspiracy to murder high office officials, you want to remove those individuals. I don't care who you are, what status quo you are, right? Prevention of that act, and then afterwards, somebody has to be held accountable. The problem is that level of accountability, we're not seeing it right now because we just deal with administration.
If this was SOE 1, that argument would be good.
But right now
this is SOE like 4.
And
this is hard.
And that is what I'm saying.
Stick up in. We have Arima waiting. Arima, good morning. You on there?
Morning, Sean.
Morning, morning.
Morning to your guest here. First, I want to say to Karen, oh God, I just hope she get a speedy recovery and take her rest. Karen, take your rest yourself and get back to work. Right? Yeah, this thing you're talking about, this is a serious thing, you know. You're watching that thing as it's simple. It's not a simple thing, you know. It's alleged, I say, plenty lawsuits coming, you know. plenty lawsuits coming after this thing. Right? This is a serious matter. More soft than gravy in it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. I think one of the issues with this is it opens the door, or it reveals, because the public is speculating along these lines, but maybe not this exactly, right? But it opens the door for some Yahoo to say, hey, you know, I heard so-and-so said this. And potentially, we don't know what the level of intelligence is. And I think the implication is even to the courts, the state is very hesitant to reveal certain things. They just said an unnamed intelligence agency has intelligence, right? And if you're not going to trust a judge with intelligence, then maybe you don't have enough to go through with charges, because at some point it's going to be public, right? And here's the thing. I said, I really hope that they didn't use some source or methods of intelligence gathering that we're not supposed to know about in order to then commit a very public action that they either can't explain or will reveal a source or method to people who are not supposed to understand or know about the potential of this source or method, right? But the thing is, part of the public concern is, oh, so you mean somebody just needs to say that I said a thing and I could be picked up on a PDO?
Well, you see where we go back again, because we arguing of, and that's what I'm saying, we just reached the same page, same position, because the conversation is about a PDO, not the offenses, or the alleged offenses, or the individuals, or the particular individuals. And I keep on saying, no matter what happened at the end of today with respect to this decision, how we go with it forward is another conversation, because if all that was being put in place or was being prepared in place for the release of the Hadids, the logistics behind it, my question was, how long would these persons be under house arrest? Because they have not been officially charged, you know. We realize that. So, how long? If this doesn't go the way it should go, or the outcome is in the favor of the state is going to have to pay.
Well, I have a theory.
I
have a theory on that, but we have, I believe, another Remo on the line. Call, good morning. You on here?
So, Michael Small, good morning to you and Mr. Ali.
Morning.
No, you could remember my last two contributions, right?
Please remind me.
When I had asked the other officer.
Okay.
I had asked the other officer about wiretapping. That was one. And yesterday, when I spoke to you, I told you that this, based on the PDOs as it stands, and based on the nature of the threat, the SOE could end today, Mr. Hadid could have been free to be free today. And 3 days later, they started back and he could just get broken just like that because of the nature of the threat. Now, what we have to understand, and the Court of Appeal brought it out in their ruling, you have to have hardcore evidence to prove this conspiracy. Now, I want to give you a classic example in layman terms. You ever walk in the road and a young lady pass you and you look back at her because you find she was looking good? That ever happened to you? Well, that is a conspiracy, Sean. So a conspiracy could be anything. I can see two people in a corner talking, and I feel it's me they're talking about, and I might never be the subject of the matter. That is a conspiracy. That is how vague it is. And I want to leave you with this. At the start of Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, remember the start of that?
I think so.
This is what, yeah.
When the ship is just stuck on the sand?
This is what we're going through right now. No. At the start when they were hanging everybody and the gentleman was reading out the rights that were suspended. And anybody that looked like a pirate, sung like a pirate, was a pirate, or who can be a pirate was hanged. Well, this is the dangerous road that we're going on right now. Good program as usual. I like the views expressed by Mr. Ali. And he's totally correct. Totally correct. Have a good day, gentlemen.
Thank you, caller. I mean, that's why I say. Just say. The thing is, I guess part of the problem is whether this is correct or incorrect, right? The only thing that would have been worse is if it was 3 individuals above the age of 80 or 3 4-year-olds. To the public, this is not when you think, oh, conspiracy to murder the Prime Minister. Yeah, these are the usual suspects you're going to see in the lineup that, you know, that we're going to assume to be guilty. Whereas before, it was always people who we assumed to be gangsters. They matched the stereotype of gangsters. They matched the age range of gangsters. They came from the correct geographic location of the hotspots for gangsters. They were potentially known to members of various communities, not just the police, of being pests. So nobody necessarily batted an eye. This is a little bit different. To the point where I know what people might assume with regards to who controls the transnational shipment of drugs within the country. I just don't know if this particular person and his wife and his aunt would be the ones who you would say, yeah, definitely, those are some of the criminal underworld participants in the Syrian community. You know what I mean? It's not scientific, technically speaking. It's not legal, but it's another thing that just adds up where people are like, we were ready to go to agree with you if it was some kind of white-collar crime, because that's what you primed us up for. And now you hit us with this conspiracy to murder charge, and the juxtaposition was too jarring. We have another Arima, potentially, a caller from Arima. Good morning.
Yes, gentlemen, good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Quickly, first of all, I disagree with the last caller from Arima with respect to how we interpret conspiracy. He is saying that he is passing and he sees 2 people having a conversation, and that could be conspiracy. It is a little more deeper than that. That's 1. 2, I am listening to you gentlemen having a discourse concerning the topic at hand. And I understand what is happening. 1, from U.S. from a civilian point of view without a law enforcement background. And Mr. Ali is seeing it from policing point of view because that is how he has been embedded. So no one is actually wrong, but you have both seen it from different points of view. I will listen off it. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. I will say this. I think the caller from Arima before was not necessarily saying what conspiracy is, but rather what it might be the standard that we could observe currently in operation.
And if I would just...
If that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, if I would just use a basic example here, a basic understanding that people doesn't understand. Conspiracy has a little more. It's a secret plan. It's a plan with 2 or more persons. No, like the Watergate. Watergate was a plan.
Right. The thing is,
you know, our attempted coup was a conspiracy because it was conspired prior to the action taking place.
I could be wrong, but I'm under the impression that the statements made was this thing should happen, not we or I am going to do this, much less how they're going to do it.
And that is why the communication has to be properly analyzed to not misrepresent what the context, make sure it fits into the context of a conspiracy.
Have you considered this? That this situation happened on the heels of Mr. Samaru's public statements, and that it might have just been empty words to state, oh, he shouldn't be saying that about these people, he should be saying that about those people.
No.
Right? And the statements essentially might have been just an empty threat prompted by someone else's statement, not meant for public consumption.
So that is
which is the difference between him and Samaru.
You know, when we watch a lot of intelligence type movies where you look at intelligence agencies working together, you realize it's.
I mean, there's some truth to it.
No, I'm just giving a basic for a person to get a basic understanding. Sometimes the narratives between parties are spoken within a coded message.
Right.
The interpretation might not be what it's supposed to be. And this is where the nature of conspiracy, conversations, we can have a conversation. The conversation has to have a little more direction, something more pointed, something that leads you to believe that, listen, what the conversation is about something specific. Now, if, and I'm just being hypothetical, if those information is presented and just by the fact that the judge would have, as I said, one of the judge would have said, there is not, he, in his opinion, didn't see that there was sufficient, sufficient evidence to warrant a detention for the PDO for the conspiracy. It means that we don't know whether or not all the up to now, I don't think that where they were from the beginning to now should be the same. They should have had a little more or put more information together before. But right now, the conversation right now is not about the offense, sorry, the alleged offense. It's about the administration, which is a PDO. Once we get over the PDO, and I'm saying what happened today, if we get over the issue with the PDO, release or no release, no problem. I am still waiting to hear charges. So when the charges are laid, if charges is to be laid, I should say, if charges to be laid on the foundation of the evidence, this matter will have to go before the courts to be properly adjudicated, determine whether or not the evidential value that is going to present is sufficient enough to substantiate a charge of conspiracy. Now, this is where we're going at.
Well, stick a pen because there's a comment that I want to get to that kind of is in line with all this. I don't know if you could put the comments up now, potentially, or if you can't. All right. The courts have not released the hadiths. I think this is semantics. Yeah. Technically, yes, you are correct. We are not legally accurate, I believe, in what we're saying. The courts have simply improved their detained conditions. Yes, they would have still been in police custody. I believe the police were going to basically take over.
No, not as yet.
Well, if they were released from the prison service, so on some level, Ashraf and myself are also correct. They would have been released from the prison service and kept in police custody. The police would have basically taken over their home from their security service, right? And basically being, they would have the authority to say what could come in, what could come out.
The only difference based on what the text is indicating here is they're right. The circumstances of their detention would be improved because the conditions, because they would not be in a prison system, they would be in their own space.
In terms of English, we are correct in that they are being released from the prison service.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But it's a semantics thing. We don't really have to get into it. You are correct. That especially the second statement, that is essentially what it is. But then she goes on to say, my question is, are there not other detained in similar circumstances? Should they not be accorded similar treatment to the hadiths? And if not, why not? And I mean, I bring it up just because I didn't want to move on any further. This is basically what Ashraf and I have been questioning this entire time, that the implications of this ruling will then potentially, if they are not applied to other cases, that could lead to some serious problems. And if they are applied to other cases, that might also, in different ways, lead to various issues and problems.
I think persons, and a lot of persons would be very curious, both from the state as well as defense lawyers, as to what this judgment is going to be.
I have a question to you, because potentially, listen, and you kind of see this played out in police TV shows, right, to kind of shortcut, but you also kind of see this play out in actual real rulings as well. The measures to protect the rights of individuals from malicious prosecution or inaccurate prosecution will invariably at times assist criminals. Yeah. Because we veer on the side of caution. El Salvador is going the opposite direction. They're veering on the side of, we're going to get the criminals no matter what, and if you're innocent and you're caught up in the mess, that's a you problem. That's not a we problem. Because we had like 1,600 murders in a year, significantly higher murder rate than TNT, right? Significantly higher. I think, no, we would have need to have, they had 6,000 or something. We would have need to have something along the lines of 1,400 murders to have a similar murder rate to El Salvador. So we don't know what that's like. But the thing is, oh gosh, I lost my train of thought with that one, you know, I lost it bad. We are on the side of caution to not over-prosecute. Criminals might get left out or let out because of it. This ruling might cause that to happen, potentially, right? Depending on how far it goes. And I would imagine somebody would also legally now have to represent others to kind of force the issue to be applied in other cases. Once that ball is rolling, then it might be a snowball effect. The Hadid's case in and of itself, I don't know if it could snowball into a wider thing. But let's just say that the potential for that is very real and it can and will happen. Is there an argument, whether security, legal, law enforcement, or what have you, to say maybe we should, it's a state emergency, and while it is proper, some consideration should be made to do the improper thing right now? I'm just asking. I don't agree with it. No, I'm just asking the question.
The thing about it is that,
because you know, a lot of people will be like, well, why are you protecting the criminals?
See, we have to understand, we're talking protecting the criminals. We have...
It can be interpreted that way.
Yeah, but...
If that's the result.
But at the end of the day, innocent until proven guilty. Same argument that we have been using for the persons who are actually at remand yard. Remand is not innocent until proven guilty. They are being treated as guilty because they're in remand. No. The public view them as guilty.
Yeah.
When you hear the argument of the prison, is listen, they are remand prisoners. We cannot treat them just like everybody. They have their rights
like
and privileges like convicts because they have not been convicted of anything.
Which is why the prison service is like, well, yes, the treatment is different.
In certain circumstances.
Yeah.
In this issue here, a PDO is a what? PDO is not a court order, you know. A PDO is not a court order. It's an administrative order by the Minister of National Security, whose server the ministry is to detain that individual. That is why you have to go before the court to determine a PDO. No, a court don't issue PDOs. So it's not a court order to send it to remand yard. So it's a different... So in one hand, we have, on a normal thing, we have a remand warrant where you're in limbo, which is innocent until proven guilty, and your matter could take some time, but you're still facing the conditions and the environment of a guilty individual, unfortunately, until they get a day in court, right? But a PDO is the burden is way beyond that. It's just you're preventing you from doing anything else. That is all a PDO is now.
Yeah, but right now,
but you're putting
we've had them in there for over a year. Well, maybe a year, soon to be a year.
Good, and that is what I'm saying. So you're taking a PDO, which is less. The evidential value for a PDO is less than that of a remand. A court sending a judge sending it to prison in remand, because when a judge or magistrate send it to prison, isn't because you was already charged for offense. You had an argument before the court, you presented facts.
The DPP saw the evidence, saw there was sufficient evidence to at least charge, so there's a chance to get a conviction, as opposed to not having a chance to get a conviction.
Then you have all the other aspects of it. You're entitled to apply for bail and everything that. But because of the fact that we're in a state of emergency, all of that is suspended, and we have a PDO. But you're using a PDO. The way that the PDO is being used.
Right, I understand that, but my question still stands. Do you think, Or do you think either it should, or do you think that it would, whether you agree with us or not in the second part, that consideration will be given to the fact that if this ruling is made to modify their detention, to release them, to whatever, right? It will affect other PDOs and potentially cause issues.
There is a high possibility that it would, because...
But the flip side, is that enough to prevent it from happening?
Well...
Or should, on a should basis?
This would be dependent on the state and the defense and the argument presented to the learned judges. They'll have to present a case. Me not being a legal mind, have some understanding of it. I am keen to hear the arguments and the judgment coming out of it, because it should give everybody an understanding now of how it is being viewed, how a PDO is going to be viewed.
The thing is, from a layman's perspective, I think ethically, we run the risk of really going down a road that we will have a hard time turning back from. And this is the easy way out. We are falling to temptation in this whole state of emergency exercise of always taking the easy way out, as opposed to, I don't know, fix the criminal justice legislation and the criminal justice system so that it can operate outside of a state of emergency.
So the PDOs is not going to change because it's part of a SUE. If the SUE ends tomorrow, the PDO, which forms part of an SUE process, still remains. Have we addressed the manner in which a PDO is being utilized? I guess after today, they will have to revisit, because if another SUE is kicked in place, well, at some point in time, if another SUE goes in.
But perhaps I think you want to something there. Perhaps the issue really isn't the PDO. The issue is how it's being used, and the foundation of how it's being used is the SOE, how the SOE is being used, not necessarily the PDO itself, because you made a good case. For normal SOEs, where you have an emergency, you have a clear and present danger, an immediate concern, so you have the PDOs to be open-ended to deal with that in the short term. It's just that where it's being used as a long-term measure.
And it was never designed for a long-term measure.
And in this case, a year is a long-term measure.
So that is why it is now being tested. And unfortunately, Sean, it's unfortunate that the accused individuals, the Hadiths, have to go through this, and I'm not taking any sides. Anybody who have to go through it will be. But the fact of the matter is that it is going to be tested. It will set the foundation going forward. And I'm saying, if there is another SUE at some point in time after this whole period, after this SUE period ends, they'll need to consider or reconsider how the PDO is being utilized and what is the benchmarks for using PDOs.
The government has proven that they don't have a crime plan, because Minister Stage said an SOE is not a crime plan, and the only thing they have done to impact crime is utilize PDOs and then SOE. But consider this, because I think this situation is a runaway train. Whoever caused this specific chapter with the Hadiths, was it the police? Was it politically motivated? Was it some poor intelligence officer that maybe wanted to make a name for himself and went off half-baked? We don't necessarily know those details. What I do know is this: I think the government has now potentially put themselves in a position where they can't stop. Because if they stop, they will face consequences for this whole kit and caboodle. They have to see this thing through and hope that there's enough to prove that what they're accused of can be proven to be true in a court of law. Otherwise, that lawsuit will dwarf, in part because of the circumstances of how long the SUE has been, dwarf all the 2011 lawsuits. There might be some in the current year of SOE that might compete, but it will dwarf, especially since they have the means to pursue the matter. I think it's interesting that they went and got two King's Councils. Because in the UK, there's a 2023 law called the Online Safety Bill. to make the UK the safest place in the world to be online, according to one report. However, it has led to a higher degree of censorship, and to the point where there have been videos of the police going into people's homes to arrest them because they posted a meme. That's it. That's the burden now, not conspiracy to commit murder, they just posted a meme. And the thing about this situation might not just touch on the SOE debates. It might touch on the Privy Council versus CCJ debate. Because if it goes to the Privy Council, to what extent, because we question this with regards to the death penalty. And to what extent are they applying their sensibilities and culture onto us? So to what extent now might they apply their sensibilities on censorship and things associated to that onto us in this matter? And that's why I think, because you're going to get UK lawyers, because they're going to understand certain aspects of the law and how to argue it in front of the Privy Council based on what their own domestic laws are. And I don't know, this might be the thing that might push me over the edge to say we have to move on from the Privy Council, depending on the reasoning provided. I'm not saying if they rule against the Hadids that I'm automatically saying that can't be right. But depending on the reasoning provided, if it looks as though they're applying their standards onto us, standards that you could argue their population might actually disagree with if given a chance, I am going to be very uncomfortable moving forward. So that to me seems to be where we're direct. That is all pure speculation on my part. But I just find something like this to be decided on by a foreign court that potentially will have a different viewpoint on us. I don't know if I could be comfortable with this situation.
I wouldn't be comfortable with it right now. I mean, we see two circumstances already where persons went on social media and made some statements and actually on a video. Mm-hmm. But they have not been charged, and I keep on saying it.
Yeah, that's a big thing, right?
Yeah, you can't inevitably keep somebody on a video without laying a charge. If you commit an offense, and it's a clear offense, it's a clear offense. Then why not put the person, charge the person?
The thing is, correct me if I'm wrong, most people detained, most, not all, but most have not been charged.
And we haven't gotten an update as to how many of the persons got charged or charges laid.
Do you understand why for the public? Because it's not as though you're keeping anything from the criminal element to help investigate them.
True.
By not saying who was charged and who was not charged. So to the public, why are you not telling us the statistics on how many were charged or keeping us up to date? Because I think they told us at one point and it wasn't good, right? So that and all is making the public uneasy and saying, you detaining all these people, but you can't actually charge them. And if you can't get the evidence to charge them now, you think in 6 months you're going to magically get more evidence? You're stopping them from doing anything. So what is there left to discover?
And that's why
they have a warning. They know to stop.
And that's why the court of public opinion is taking precedent on everything right now.
Well, this is the thing. On some level, you as a police officer don't need to fully care about the court of public opinion, right? Except how it impacts your job. But for politicians, it directly impacts their job. It directly impacts their ability to govern and lead. So I am just at a loss. I understand that you cannot be dictated to by public opinion. But you can't discount or disregard public opinion. And I think they are.
The public opinion is relevant, right? It is relevant. In certain circumstances, because you get different point of views. If you don't accept person's point of view, then we are dictatorship, right? And we are not in a dictatorship that I know of.
Well, according to the Prime Minister, we are not, but according to, actions speak louder than words.
I wouldn't go there because we are still not in a dictatorship.
I didn't say what the actions were. I was just saying,
right?
The Prime Minister did also say it. However, actions do speak louder than words.
Yeah, but
interpret that how you will.
So you need to get point of views. There are point of views that go beyond or across the threshold or the standard in which is a point of view. It becomes disrespectful. It can become seditious. It becomes libelous. right? It could become a threat.
I mean, look, Christmas list doesn't want to come in until the SOE is over. He's concerned about being held by a PDO.
Well, I happy for him too, so he can stay out.
Which I find is crazy because, again, some people view his sedition charge as a Mickey Mouse charge. But that didn't come from this government, that came from the previous government.
No, that could be argued, that could always be argued in certain manners. No. That is why social media is critical, because voicing your opinions has to be tempered with not breaching the laws. Because I can share my opinion, but if I am encouraging certain actions, we have a problem. Because our laws states that if you do certain things, it's an offense, right? If you're trying to incite people to cause problems, well, hey, you got to answer some questions.
But I think the problem is sometimes the authorities want to move on subjective things as opposed to objective measures.
How far are we willing to or push the envelope to have control of social media? Because having control of social media to some extent means, hold on, is where other countries like in China and in Japan,
or in the UK,
who is doing it right now, is, how I should say, curbing or curtailing some degree of free speech and free expression.
The thing with the UK is their pre-existing, or historically, from what I understand, their laws are derived from when they were actual monarchy. So you can criticize the monarch, right? And one could say similar mindsets could apply in China, even though the Politburo doesn't directly come from the emperor, right? But there's that kind of mindset of how dare you criticize, you can't, sacrosanct, blah, 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 blah. We are not, I don't think we're supposed to have that. In fact, this is the thing. That's the whole point of being a republic, right? So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in your experience as a police officer, I think it's fair to say most people will, and this has to be the end, by the way, we have to go now. They don't necessarily understand. We don't have free speech here, we have freedom of expression. They're not the same thing. What we see in America is not what is here.
Right, so we enforce in pockets. So for carnival, obscene language could be we could tolerate obscene language because persons might be under the influence of alcohol, so you could tolerate.
This is the public.
Yeah, the public, right? Okay. So you might give a little tolerance to that. You might give tolerance to the type of dress, behavior, lewd and suggestive, because there's no offense. When some of them talk about it, is that during election times, you have certain type of narratives being put across. There are certain toleration. They say, listen, we have, because of the election, persons could view the opinion and all kinds of like that. So we tolerating them in pockets. After a while, as we keep tolerating all of that, it becomes the norm. So now, social media, comments going on social media, it's not tolerating anymore. The nature of it anymore. The nature of it, sometimes it's so vulgar and so sorry, we have just reached the gray area in social media that we are too sure which side we want to be on.
And that's the thing. If this goes to the eventual conclusion, I wonder if either political party or if any political party wants to pursue this is ready to lock up their own supporters commenting on social media, because it's that bad. It's that bad on all sides, right? And I'll leave that there. Thanks for bringing that up. Folks, we have to go. Don't miss 10 questions with Andy Johnson at 10 a.m. This is Talking Point on WSN. Thanks to all the callers. Thanks to Ashraf for joining me. Thanks to the commenter. Don't forget to have a good weekend, folks. Remember your allegiance to the public and to each other above all political allegiances. Please consider that. Don't forget, it's nice to be nice. Like I said, have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
WESN.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios. But they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve